All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Modern Goonies podcast. I'm your host, Trevor King Minor, and I'm here hanging out with my new co-host, Michael Ross.
It's your boy, Michael fucking Ross.
So, this is the start of our new format where we have planned out topics with seasons of about 10 episodes each. Where we're going to drop a new episode every week for the next 10 weeks, and then it'll be followed by a short hiatus. And we'll just do that kind of in cycles to give you guys a little bit more content consistently, because we haven't been very consistent lately. So this is season 1, episode 1, and our topic of the night is COVID vaccinations and the 1-year aftermath of COVID-19. So I kind of want to start by talking about, when I say aftermath of COVID, I mean going through it in the last year, kind of like how our lives changed, and kind of just going through like step by step as we saw the world around us kind of evolve into the new normal. So, Michael, why don't we like start with you? Like walk us through your COVID experience when this shit like first started popping up, maybe when you first heard about it, and then obviously like we have this one point where we completely intersect on like when our lives like really changed. But go ahead, man, start talking.
Okay. So the very first time I heard about it was a Friday. It was the Friday before spring break for me. The Friday before we went to Arkansas. And I was talking to a fellow graduate student, and he said, "Hey, this sounds pretty serious. Like, what do you think the chances are that it's going to come to the United States and, like, negatively affect our lives?" And I was like, that's probably unlikely. And so we fucking went to Arkansas, and toilet paper was already being purchased.
Right,
fucking
yeah.
off the shelves. There were no eggs. There were no, like, the stock was basically empty.
Yeah.
And then we decided that we would go to IHOP. Obviously, you may remember that. And they were giving us syrup in these plastic, like, condiment cups.
Kind of like, it's like those things you get like to-go ketchup in, like the little like plastic saucer cups. But yeah, they were giving it to us like syrup at the table like that. You had to get like 4 of them just to coat your pancakes.
Yeah, we couldn't get the actual syrup container. And I was like, okay, this is weird. But, I mean, surely, like, this is probably going to be the extent of it. So we leave Arkansas, and we go back to Texas. That night, I got an email from, like, the president of the university. He sent, like, a mass email out to everybody. And he said that for the duration of the semester, we are not going to have in-person classes. We will be immediately transitioning to online classes. So that semester, I very nearly failed every single course that I took. And I would have if it wasn't for, like, this amnesty policy that they adopted because of the pandemic. Yeah. So that was shitty. But one thing I really enjoyed was when we had the partial lockdown in, like, March to April. Mm-hmm. I really loved how slow everything was. Like, despite the fact that everything was going to shit, everything felt so slow and so fucking peaceful.
It was like a moment where the world just kind of paused. And I know for a lot of people it was probably, really terrifying, and it was a lot of like uncertainty. But I know for you and me, whose lives had been moving so quickly and so nonstop for like the last several years of our lives, like for everything just to hit pause for a moment, like, no matter the circumstances, it felt oddly good. Like finally a moment to fucking breathe, and it took a pandemic to give us that.
Yeah, like the only time that I've felt like that within the past year, aside from lockdown, was when we had that winter storm a few months ago, and like everything had to get shut down for a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Like I felt the same then, even if I was freezing my balls off.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was kind of the same feeling a little bit. I felt like one felt way more ominous, but yeah, for sure. I felt kind of the same way. Anyways, continue.
So, I like to rave, obviously. And so all of my raves got fucking canceled right off the bat. All of my tickets were refunded. And like for the foreseeable future, everybody was canceling all their events. So the EDM community decided to adopt virtual festivals, and I'm sure a lot of other music communities have done that. But my first virtual rave, as lame as this might sound, It was just so fucking cool. Like, I met a group of people on Twitter. We all got in this group chat, and I mean, we were vibing pretty hard. So we all joined this FaceTime call during one of the virtual raves, and we just had a good time. It was great. I mean, some of us were on drugs, some of us were drinking.
Wait. So you did just like a FaceTime call, and it was like was it like a rave that they were putting on like specifically virtually, or was this like a rave that was happening in another part of the US that was still open, and then you guys just like joined into it and raved virtually?
This was specifically virtually.
Okay.
Like, it was called Digital Mirage, and I will never forget that day because it was so fucking cool.
That's funny.
Like, everything just seemed hopeless, and then Digital Mirage happened.
Yeah.
And I was so pumped, so hyped.
Did you end up going to that drive-in rave? Because I know you asked a couple people about it. Because I was curious to see like how that one would go. It reminds me of like an old drive-in theater or something, but way fucking cooler.
Yeah, I did not go to that. I really wanted to, but I forget what prevented me from doing it.
Yeah, I don't remember either. Okay, so the virtual rave, and then what's next? What was next in Michael's life?
After that, immediately after the virtual rave, the semester effectively ended. And that's when I found out that I nearly failed all my classes.
Shit.
So after that, we had the social unrest with the killing of George Floyd and
Yeah, Jesus
yep,
Christ.
Yep. And I thought COVID was going to play a big part in that, but I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement was more important than COVID restrictions, I felt, and I think a lot of people felt that as well.
Well, the funny thing is that, a lot of people were they were trying to blame more COVID spread on the BLM protest, but most of them, are younger kids about like our age and who believe what the CDC is telling us. So they were out there wearing masks, and some of them socially distancing as much as they possibly could. So this could be wrong now, but I remember at the time reading statistics that they actually weren't contributing like all that much to the spread of the disease.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
And like you said, people were following as much precautions as you could reasonably at a protest.
Right.
But I mean, the fact that the protest happened just goes to show that even though demonstrations weren't recommended by the CDC at that time, like that wasn't as important.
Yeah, and I feel a lot of people felt that same sentiment because, like I said, I feel like, unfortunately, it was made a political issue. So a lot of people who were kind of like on that side of the political spectrum felt that way. Like they were taking the disease serious, and they always had been from the beginning. But then this happened, and like you said, it was kind of like a call to arms for a lot of people on that side of the fence. Who's like, okay, well, fuck, we've been trying to do our best about this disease, but we gotta do this because it was just such a fucked up situation. And honestly, without the people going out and doing what they had, I don't know if Chauvin would have ever been convicted or held accountable for his actions. So it was kind of like the ends justify the means type situation.
I agree. So after that, Sarah was having a hard time finding a job, probably because of the pandemic. So we had to move out of the house that we lived in with our old roommate, and we moved back into her mom's house. After that, I moved from that house into a hotel for a month. And since then, that was the breaking point for my finances personally.
Really?
Yeah, I had been so good with money and paying down my credit cards every month. Being as responsible as possible. And then I went to the hotel, met my breaking point, and that was just the change. Now
I mean,
I'm
you can only
financially
push a man so far before finally something fucking snaps. And I mean, what a shitty time. I mean, that sucks. I had forgotten because this has been a year from hell. I can barely even remember last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like I forgot how difficult it actually was on you and Sarah. Like you guys. Yeah, you had to move out. You had to specifically go to a hotel, and that's difficult. It's difficult shit to go through.
Yeah, over the course of 3 months, we moved 3 different times.
Yeah, that fucking sucks, man.
And I mean, that was probably the biggest thing. And then after that, we moved into the dorms in Commerce. Then I just struggled with school, struggled through it, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially you, because you're an in-person learner, and for everything to switch over to online like that, really did not cope well with it. And I don't blame you, because like the few online classes that I took when I was in college were the classes I did probably the worst in, because I didn't have, and they would be like easy subjects, but if I just had, if it was like in person and things could be explained in more depth, or people, the teacher can explicitly tell you these are things I'm going to be looking for on assignments and exams. It's it's way easier. And so if all of my classes had just been switched over to online, I don't think I would have done well either. Like, I think I also would have struggled through. And you were taking classes that are like insane, like in physics, and I mean, that's all I need to say, just physics, but still.
Yeah, like you could. So I was in a position where I was a teaching assistant. So I was both a student and
right, yeah,
sort of a teacher.
And that's not an easy job.
Well, you can see how the students have been impacted by COVID. Because, I mean, we're all sort of in this fucked up situation together. And, I mean, the students were having a hard time. And it just felt really weird seeing that from almost like a third-person perspective.
Right.
Because, like, obviously I know what I'm going through. But it felt really lonely. Because I didn't have the graduate student community that I had, like, prior to the pandemic.
Right, yeah.
But it did feel good that we were all just in a fucked up situation together.
Right, yeah. I remember you had said that a couple times when we did the FaceTime podcast. It's like, we're all in this shithole together. It's like, well, we're distanced, but we're together,
Yep.
I guess. Yeah.
Same concept.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But aside from that, I mean, that's basically been the past 6 to 8 months. School, looking for jobs, more school. Job hunt hasn't gone so well.
Yeah, it's a difficult world in the job hunting field. I've navigated through that, and that was one of arguably the most miserable time of my fucking life, was trying to find a job. Indeed can go fuck itself. That is a podcast opinion that I stand by and will to the end of this day. Go fuck yourself, Indeed. Yeah.
Fuck you, Indeed.
So tapering off there for the end of your COVID experience. You got more to share? Or?
No, I think that's a pretty good sum up of my COVID experience.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll get into kind of like how my life went in the last year. So admittedly, and it sucks because there were a lot of people who were not as fortunate as I was. People lost their homes. A lot of people lost loved ones. Like, this was a horrible year for a lot of people. And unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately for me, I was very blessed in the sense that my life went better. Like, it went in the more positive direction in this entire pandemic than it had in many years. So I honestly, like, a part of me feels like guilty because it's like my life went so well while so many other people's was just completely turned upside down. But, I mean, there were still things, you have to adapt to. So the start of my experience, I remember the first time I heard about COVID. So I read a lot of articles in the morning at work. I'll get there and I'll have my coffee and I'll read articles for about like 10 to 15 minutes. It's kind of just, you're not ready you're not in work mode yet. You need like a transition. So that's what I would do. And that's how I started getting like a lot more informed on issues. As I would come in the morning. I'd never read the news before a day in my fucking life, but it's like it was the default page at my old job. Like, if you just clicked on Internet Explorer, it was like MSN, it was like Microsoft News. So I'd be like, oh, okay. So I'd like read through shit. And now that is a daily habit I've continued on for the last like 3 years. So I was like, I'd read articles and then I'd see and then of course you get this doomsday one that pops up and shit. This was back, I don't know. I think it was like shortly after when it first popped up. So I want to say it was probably like November, December or something like that. And I remember reading, it's like, there's a disease in China. I was like, this is interesting. And it's like, oh. And so I'm reading like the death tolls. And I remember back when it was only like, I think when I was first reading these articles, they had only announced that there had been about 6 deaths from it. 6. And I remember reading that. I was like, well, I mean, it's only 6 people. And like, there's new diseases like all the time that are kind of like contained. So it's not a big deal. And I was like, whatever. Well, then I start like, the more days that pass, these articles, these death tolls are just like going up. And I'm like, okay, this is a little eerie. So then like next thing I know, it's at like 60. And I'm like, fuck, okay. And then it just like keeps going up. So I'm like kind of keeping my eye on it. And then it like really started. And then I think, I don't remember the moment where they completely quarantined Wuhan, but, it was getting pretty bad. I remember that. And so I took a trip with my dad to Colorado in January of 2020. And it was getting pretty bad at the time. And I remember asking people, so it was like me and all my dad's work buddies. So I'm like the only kid there. I'm 23 and the rest of them are all like in their 40s or 50s. And I'm like, hey, have you guys been reading about this disease? Like, this seems a little worrisome. Like, you guys think we're going to have to worry about this over here? And all of them, like every single one, were like, nah, man. Like, that's just, like, these headlines are just, they're just scaring you. Like, they make it sound worse than it is. Like, we're going to be good. Yeah, so, fucking, that was seriously, I got that same response from, like, everyone at that table. Like, nah, you don't need to worry about that, man. And so then, sure enough, it slowly starts like coming over here, and then I'm reading articles about like, oh, there's people dying in California, like, and so then it just slowly starts like kind of spiraling, and next thing I know, we're taking because we had planned like an Arkansas trip. It's kind of just like a weekend getaway. Like we've been working a while. Let's go have some fun. It was for Harrison's birthday. And as we were leaving, shit was getting weird. It was getting like, you were hearing people like how you said earlier, people were going into stores and just buying a bunch of shit off the shelves. Like all the shelves were empty. I was hearing rumors about like toilet paper. I'm like, the fuck is that? People are just like hoarding toilet paper. And then we stopped because we were driving out and we were in Greenville. This is where we stopped for gas. And I was standing next to a guy at a pump. And it was just me and him, and he was like, he was telling me that he had just come from Quick Trip and that they were out of gas. Like people were lining up out onto the street, and he said he had been having trouble finding gas. And I was like, oh shit, like really? People are like panic buying gas? And so it was just kind of like this looming feeling as we're like driving out there. It's like, okay, this shit's kind of getting bad. Like people are starting to panic buy stuff. Like I haven't really seen that too much before. And then so, we're out there, we're kind of doing our thing. Life is still normal. We go to a putt-putt course. We're just kind of fucking around and nothing's too strange. But then it's like we were there and we got like the breaking news shit, like, lockdown. Like everything is locked down. And we're just at this Airbnb, really nice Airbnb on like a foggy, rainy lake in the middle of nowhere of Arkansas. And it was just this feeling of like, when we go back to the world, what is it gonna be like? And I'll never forget that feeling, because it was literally like the world that we just came from is changing, and I had no concept, none of us had any concept of what that would mean, how long it would last. Like, okay, like we're in lockdown, this will just last for a little bit, but it was just so looming, and it was I could never forget that. And so just in case, I remember we were at this Airbnb and I was hearing the rumors about the toilet paper and shit. So I grabbed I stole a couple rolls from the Airbnb. I was like, just in case, like they're not fucking around. They were not fucking around. I know how hard it was to find toilet paper after that. It was ridiculous. So then, we come back and the world's just different. So I'm at my job, and we just kind of work like everything's normal. Like we acknowledge that things are changing and that are way different, but got to keep chugging on, got to make money. And finally, somebody caught it. They caught the disease in my office. And it was like, this is the first person that any one of us in the office had heard of getting COVID. And like someone had it. And so everyone like freaked the fuck out. Everyone was losing their minds. And they sent us all home. And so that was the moment where I was finally like working. I was just like everyone else. I was in my apartment. I had to quarantine for 2 weeks because I had been exposed to the disease. And just kind of trapped in my apartment. And I would just remember sitting there thinking, and like driving to and from work during that entire time, no one on the road, no traffic on 635, driving into Dallas, nothing, just a ghost town. And it even made even more ominous by the fact that it's like, kind of that time of year where it's like really rainy and foggy. And so it's just apocalyptic. It was crazy. Were you going to say something?
Yeah. What you said about one of your coworkers getting COVID, that is sort of how I felt about our friend group.
Yeah.
Like when I first heard about COVID, I felt that our friend group was insulated from the entire thing. Like
Yeah.
we were never going to get it. As silly as that sounds,
Well,
it just felt like we were sheltered.
yeah.
And then like it started getting closer to us geographically. Like you said, California, other states started getting it, and I thought, okay, it's coming. And then Texas got its first case, and then Hunt County got its first case, and then I started thinking about how one of us might get it eventually.
Yeah.
And then it did make its way into our friend group eventually. I don't know who the first was to get it.
Can't
but,
remember.
I mean, the fact that it was there it shouldn't have been, but it was a shock.
Yeah, well, I mean, it took so long for one of us to catch it too, because we were all doing our part, I would say. So it took a while for the first person to catch it, like months, like almost an entire year into the pandemic before any of us did. Yeah, so they finally, they sent us home and just locked out, just like sheltered from the world. And I remember that was kind of the moment that you and I both had of just like finally, I can fucking breathe, because I had been at this job for nearly 2 years, and it was every day you're breaking your back at your desk, just nonstop working, and it to the point of like mental insanity, and just no time to breathe. And then it finally just like stopped, and it's like I can finally. I had moved into my apartment like months before that, but I was never there. I was always working. And I'm finally just like, I'm sitting there, it's like, I have work to do, but how the fuck are they going to monitor if I'm doing work from my apartment? They're not. And so I'm just like, I can, and it was honestly, and like I said, it sucks because for so many other people, that was like a moment of sheer terror and panic. Like, what the fuck are we going to do? But for me, it was a moment of like, I need this. I desperately needed that moment. And so, for 2 months, I was working from home before they finally brought us back into the office, and things kind of started, I would say, going back to normal. And so like after that 2 month period of like the initial lockdown, things went like completely back to normal for me. I was going into the office every single day, working. Nothing had really changed other than the fact that, you go into a business and you have to wear a mask, or you can't go to some of these businesses that you had gone to for a while because they just are completely shut down. They're like, nope, like takeout only or whatever. Like, we're not opening our doors. So that was really the strangest thing. But for the most part, like, my life lived pretty normal. I was a bar fly before that. So I was always at a bar or a club or something. And so that drastically changed. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if the only aspects of your life during this pandemic that are changing are the fact that you can't go out and have a drink or go to a club, then your life's pretty good. Like, you're not doing bad.
Yeah.
And so I always recognize that. It's like, okay, it's like, oh, wow, like I can't go hang out with a bunch of strangers in a crowded room. So, life continued. Height of the pandemic, so the trip was originally for we were planning a trip for your bachelor party, and then it kind of just morphed into a trip. And so that one was really weird because we took a trip down to Austin, and when we get there, I mean, the city for a city like Austin, it's still kind of a ghost town. Like, we could not do anything. Like, everything was shut down. We could go to some food places. I know we did that, but just trying to we just wanted to be on the water because it's in the middle of summer, and just trying to find like a body of water that we were allowed to be on was almost non-existent. We spent hours sitting in the car, just like driving to different places. Like, where the fuck can we go? And we finally ended up at like Lady Bird Lake. Like, you're not supposed to be on it. And so like technically, so we weren't on it. We bought inner tubes and we were just in this small little like cove. So we weren't on the water. And like, so that was, looking back, that was really strange because now you can kind of go out and you can do things now, as long as you're careful and you're wearing a mask and you're kind of distancing. But then that was not the case. Like, especially in Austin, like everything was fucking shut down. Like we couldn't go to 6th Street, the main attraction. So, but once again, like if these are really the things you're bitching about, it's not that bad.
Right.
So, that was definitely a strange moment. But then, we came back, and I had finally gotten a new job. It took forever for me to find one, which I said I understand your plight, like big time, because finding a job in today's world, especially during a pandemic, is really hard. And that was something that really bothered me because I hated my job so much. And then this pandemic kicks in. It's like, fuck, now I'm stuck here. And it's like, thank God I have a job. Like, I'm grateful that I do, but it's like I'm being forced to be grateful to have this miserable fucking kick in the dick job. Yeah, so I finally get a new one, and it's like the same way. Things are completely normal for that job. Go into the office every single day. The only difference is when you're up away from your desk, like wear a mask. You wear a mask into the building, but everything was normal. And I've been there ever since, and life has just slowly but surely gotten back to the normal that we knew before all of this bullshit. And so I've been chugging along pretty much like nothing changed all that much. And then like even now I can still go out to bars and stuff. And now you and I are both completely vaccinated. So it's like not, even if it was a concern before, now it's like less and less of a concern. So it's like finally, you were kind of always paranoid. Mm. And I know I was, because even at my new office, like some people got COVID who I shared a very small space with. So it's like, fuck, I'm going to get it. And that happened twice. And I was like, fuck it. The second they open up for me to go get a vaccine, I'm doing it. And so like a week later, I went and got it because I was just tired of having to worry about getting this disease. Because, even though I'm young and I'm healthy, like that doesn't just give me this free pass from not dying from it. Because like there have been plenty of cases where young, healthy people have died. It's just such a weird kind of like finicky disease. Sometimes it affects people horribly. Sometimes you don't even know you fucking have it. And so it's just all over the place.
See, the thing about COVID that worries me is that I'm not really scared of dying. Like statistically, I'm not going to die. I can die, but more than likely it's not going to happen.
Right.
What I'm afraid of is surviving and getting like some sort of permanent damage to either my organs. Well, I was going to say my lungs, but your lungs are an organ. Like there are lasting effects that COVID has caused beyond just lung damage.
Right.
And people are finding that out. I don't know what they are, unfortunately, but like a few months ago, I was reading about quote unquote long COVID. That's what they're calling it. Like the lasting effects from COVID. And like there was permanent damage to something. And I know this is unhelpful to say.
I think it was permanent. From what I understand, it's permanent. People have experienced permanent lung damage, and they've experienced some like heart issues as well.
That might be it. Yeah, heart.
Yeah, I've seen those seem to be the two most common that people are going to have like more long-term effects from. Yeah, I mean it's just such a. And then the taste and smell, that's another thing. So, like, I know the girl I'm seeing right now, like, she got COVID a couple months ago, and her taste and smell haven't really come back fully. Like, she still can't taste things like how she used to. And she knows it's different. It's kind of, like, hard for her to describe now. But, yeah, it hasn't really fully come back. And I've heard that happen with a lot of people, is that they lost their sense of taste and smell, and it only came back like half of what it was before, if at all. There's some I've heard that it just never came back. Like there was a woman in my old office who that's how it was. Like she had it like months before, and her taste and smell just never came back.
Dude, as a man who loves to cook, that would be devastating.
Yeah, that would fucking suck. That is not because it's like a small thing, but like you don't realize how much you taste and smell shit. For lack of eloquency there. But yeah, like that's a shitty side effect.
Oh,
and
for
it's
sure.
like I said, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, but that's really annoying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I thankfully wouldn't know, but I hope I never have to find out.
Yeah, me either. Okay, so I think this is probably a good point to transition into the COVID vaccine. So we've kind of talked about it, how COVID affected our lives personally. And so, yeah, I think it's a good time to kind of talk about the light at the end of the tunnel of all of this bullshit. So I guess we'll just go through like personal vaccine experience. So Michael and I are both completely vaccinated. We both have had our second dose. I got mine last week, and he got his a couple weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah, May 6th, whatever day that was.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. So Michael, why don't you go first? Like, explain to people how your vaccination went, how you came about getting it, any side effects that you had, and just go ahead and tell the story.
Okay, so for the listeners who may be close to Frisco, Dallas, I went to the Baylor Frisco hub to get my vaccination, and that process was like a well-oiled machine. They had several people basically taking your information, having you sign waivers and insurance forms, and then ultimately you got the shot. I got the shot, And then they put you in this waiting area for about 15 minutes. And you wait for 15 minutes, see if you develop any side effects. If you don't, you're free to go. It was so easy, man.
Yeah.
Like, the only issues that I had were a sore arm, probably for maybe 2 days, 3 days. And then I felt like I had a fever on let's see, 1 or 2 days after the second dose. But I checked my temperature like once every few hours, and
Right.
I never had a fever. I just felt like I had the fever chills. And then there were occasions where I was really sore all over my body, but especially my back.
Yeah, you got the body aches.
But, I mean, from what I've heard other people going through, I had it relatively mild.
Okay.
So, I mean, that only lasted for about 2 days. By the third day, I felt just fine.
That's really good. And you got the Pfizer one, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Pfizer Poppy, baby.
Hell yeah. So, I looked for mine. So, like I said, some people in my office got COVID, and I was finally just like, fuck this. So I went to look, and I wanted to do it just through like CVS because I had to go get tests there like a couple times. Which, by the way, I didn't even have to have like my first COVID test until, I mean, literally beyond a year in the pandemic. Like it was. I'd lasted a very long time. So I'd gotten a couple tests at CVS. And so I was like, I just want to do it as easy as it was there, or maybe go to like a Kroger or something. But all of them were backlogged for like months. Like people just constantly, they wouldn't let me schedule anything. So I said, fuck it. I went to, so like where I live, there's like 3 different major counties around. So I just went for one. I figured people would go for less. I registered through Denton County. And like the Denton County Health Services. And I was like, okay, whatever. When I guess it says they'll hit me up whenever they're ready, and we'll kind of go from there. And I want to say like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks later, they hit me up and they're like, hey, you're 247,000th in line. And I was like, holy shit, like I'm not getting my vaccine anytime soon. God damn. And then like a couple of days later, they're like, all right, show up here and at this time. I was like, shit, that was quick. And so what they did is they did it through like a mass vaccination site. And so they sent me to the Texas Motor Speedway, in which I didn't even realize was in Denton. It's basically in Fort Worth. It's like on the outer rim of Denton. It's insane. It's bullshit because it's like 40 minutes no matter where you are to get to it. So yeah, it was like a mass vaccination site. So I just pulled up in because you didn't do it through like your car, right? You just like walked into like a site and they just did it on site, or were you in your car?
I walked into a site.
Okay. All right. And so, yeah, you just rolled up in your car and they have, I think it was FEMA who was doing it.
Okay.
At least I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. Like some of the badges that people were wearing, they look like FEMA badges. And so, you got some military members. They're like, they got the cones. They're waving you like, get in this line, get in that line. And so I just rolled up. They handed me a form. Fill that shit out, pull in through a couple tents. They verify everything. They ask you if you ever had any allergic reactions to certain things. Pulled up into like the third tent. They give it to me. Then they put us all in a line, like this giant car line, and they monitor you for like 15 minutes. And the way you have to tell them if like you're having an adverse side effect is you have to like flash your lights and honk your horn. Like that's how you fucking tell them that you're like dying in your car. And so, yeah, someone made the joke. They're like, man, how concerning would that be if like you pull up and you see that sign and then you just see a car like honking like crazy? I was like, yeah, I think I'd pull right the fuck out of there. But obviously that didn't happen. Everyone was just chilling in line. So the longest part of the entire process was just waiting in that 15-minute line. That was it. So like literally I pulled in and got the shot in less than 5 minutes. And then the rest of my time there was just the 15 minutes I had to wait to make sure I didn't die. And it was super easy. Like that was it. And so I did that both times. They didn't really give me a choice. Like show up this day at this time. So I show back up at like the middle of the fucking day on a Friday. And I had absolutely zero side effects from this thing. Zero.
None.
I had the only one, which to me was pretty normal for just a shot in general, was like you're having a sore arm.
Yeah.
Now, granted, my arm was definitely way more sore than any other shot that I've gotten, but it was still super manageable. It's not like you're not going to be able to conduct your daily activities with this sore arm.
Yeah.
But I had zero side effects. Now, granted, the night of, I did get drunk. So I might have had some and just not felt them. But I I had no side effects. I was perfectly fine. My sister's graduation was the very next day, and I was worried that I was going to be really sick for it. But I woke up normal, no tired, like I wasn't fatigued at all. Showed up, hung out with the entire family this entire time. Nothing, no side effects. It was great.
Damn.
Yeah, and so like I was reading, and I think like it's literally like only 40% of people actually experience any side effects. Like it's really low.
Like I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, so
probably from you.
So most people experience the side effects on the second dose, and they're pretty mild. It's just like fever, chills, body aches, fatigue. Those are kind of like the main ones, and it's really nothing to be too concerned about. Now, some people it has like made them feel like pretty ill. Like I know Zach, it kind of kicked his ass a little bit, but the side effects dissipate in a very short amount of time. Like if it's not within the first day, it's only going to last probably like 3 days, and that's it. From everything that I've seen, I don't know if do you have any notes over there of?
No, not about side effects.
Okay.
Or at least how long they last.
Yeah, so like it was relatively short. It was super easy and a great experience. I'd recommend going to a mass vaccination site because they had that shit down like clockwork. People in and out. Like the longest you spend there is like 20 minutes and that's it. So yeah, that was great. So one of the more pertinent things that I think we should talk about in this is that for those listening, a lot of people are super hesitant to get this vaccine. And I can understand some of their concerns because just from if you know absolutely nothing about this, it can look kind of sketchy because, it can look like they just developed this disease, this vaccine in like less than a year, or this new vaccine or this new disease that pops up. And it can look scary. It can make people kind of like hesitant, like, man, I don't want a rushed, vaccine in my arm. And, people in today's age are already hesitant to get just regular fucking vaccines anyway. So like, I understand that, but so I kind of wanted to go through with you and discuss some of like the common myths and dispel them because I have seen a shitload of misinformation. I'm sure there's a way more on Facebook than anywhere else. I've chosen to avoid Facebook entirely, but certainly on Instagram. I've seen it a lot on Instagram. People will post to their stories like, "Oh, don't get this. It causes this or that." And the sad thing is that most of this that I'm seeing that is definitely misinformation or things that are just blatantly wrong can be figured out within just a single Google search.
Yeah.
And I did that for a couple of them, and I'm like, where the fuck are people getting this stuff from? Like, they're just believing this rumor mill or like a post they see on Facebook or some shit, and then they're, reposting it and warning people to like not get it. And it's dangerous. It's really dangerous because we worked so hard to get to this point. Like, we finally have a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, we are almost out, and people are getting vaccinated. We're gonna crush this disease. And people are like stopping, like they're putting their fucking, like they're putting their feet in the sand. They're like, no, not moving anymore. And it's like, fuck, we're so close. Like we're so close. So like, I think it's really important for those who know us or might have known us in the community, if you're hesitant to like listen to what we're about to tell you, because there is really nothing to be worried about. This is just misinformation and people fear mongering for no fucking reason. And so I think we should discuss that. So, Go ahead.
So, a pretty understandable concern that people have is that the vaccines were quote unquote rushed. Like they were developed in less than a year and then they got FDA approval.
Not just approval, but emergency approval.
Emergency approval, right?
Right.
So the thing about that people probably don't know is that the technology used in the vaccines has been around for a while. Like the messenger RNA that was used in the Pfizer and the Moderna. I've been saying Moderna. I've heard others say Moderna.
I've been saying Moderna, but potato.
Yeah, anyway. So the mRNA technology that's been in both of those vaccines has been used and tested on humans since 2011.
Right, because like the thing about this disease is that it's not the only coronavirus that exists. It's just the newest form of it. So there have been tests on different strands of this very same disease that have been around for years. This is not just a brand new thing we pulled out of our ass.
Right. And even the Johnson and Johnson and AstraZeneca vaccines, they use something called an adenovirus, which you can effectively call the common cold an adenovirus. It's a virus that causes, it's a common virus that causes a host of illnesses.
Yeah.
The common cold is an adenovirus. And research on that has been available for a long time as well. So it's not as though the scientists and virologists who were creating the vaccines were just going in it blindly. Like, we're coming from a very solid, very established scientific ground.
Right.
Which is why the process and even though it was an emergency, that's why the emergency FDA approval happened so quickly. Like, we're coming from a place where we're already pretty comfortable scientifically.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like you said, we've been kind of developing this technology and vaccine formula for a while. And the way we developed this, people kind of had the perception that it was just like from scratch, just get it out to the people, and we did it in less than a year, when usually vaccines take 3 or 4 or something to get FDA approval.
Yeah.
But that was something else, is that, so, it's been around for years. There's also a couple other factors, which I'm sure you might have in your notes too. But so another reason that it's not rushed. So China isolated and shared genetic information about COVID-19 pretty quickly, actually.
Okay.
And so that way, scientists pretty much, as soon as the virus presented itself, they were already able to start working on that vaccine almost immediately. So that means as far back as October of last year, or no. Yeah, no, that's right. October 2020? Or no, 2019.
2019.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, shit, God.
Because 2020 is the lost year.
Yeah, fucking hell. Yeah, I know. It keeps fucking my head. Yeah, so basically of October of 2019, they have had genetic information on this disease to be able to work on a vaccine. That's pretty long. That's a good chunk of time. And we've already had the technology around for a while. We've already been working on this for a while. And so more on the rush development, people kind of think that maybe we skipped some steps or we rushed some steps. But what we actually did is we worked on multiple steps in conjunction with other steps. So usually when you're working on a vaccine, it goes linearly. You go, and a lot of it is apparently bureaucracy. So you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So what we actually did, or the vaccine producers actually did, is they were working on 1 to 2, but while they were working on 1 and 2, they were also stacking 3 and 4. They were working on steps 3 and 4 as well, and that's kind of just a basic way of explaining it. But the approval to start making these vaccines allowed them to work on multiple steps at the same time. So no steps were skipped. None of them were rushed. They were just worked on at the same time. Yeah, so you talked about the messenger RNA. Let's see.
I think misunderstanding messenger RNA is another cause for fear. The fact that this is an mRNA vaccine.
Yeah.
I follow this page on Twitter called Bad Medical Takes, and I see a lot of things about the COVID-19 vaccine, and I've seen some people say that mRNA is hypermagnetic and it makes your blood more magnetic than iron. Let me just say that for anybody who thinks that, let me just spell that real quick. That is complete bullshit. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I know people have been worried about that it changes your genes or some shit like that. And I think that's one of the concerns on the mRNA thing. And what I learned today is that what this does is it actually doesn't even enter your genome. So it literally affects your genes in no fucking possible way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, go ahead. What?
I was just going to say, mRNA is just something that tells your cells, how to build proteins.
Yeah.
And when you inject the mRNA vaccine, it's got the corresponding mRNA for the COVID-19 protein.
Yeah.
So your body recognizes the COVID-19 protein, and then you can fight against it. That's all it is.
Yeah, and so that kind of leads me into, because of how you just described that, this is probably the biggest one that I see, the most spread one, is that it affects women's fertility.
Okay.
That is the number one myth that I have personally seen, and I see a lot of people spreading that on Instagram, family members that I talk to, people that I talk to, women specifically who are about our age in their early 20s who want to get pregnant in the next couple years. don't want to take the vaccine because they're afraid that it will affect their fertility in a way. So let's go ahead and completely dispel that. So this came from a false report that surfaced on social media. And I don't know where it originated. I've heard a blog post. I've heard like some like German quack said something and it just kind of spread. But it came from a post that said that the spike protein in the coronavirus was the same as another spike protein called something I can't even pronounce because I'm not a fucking doctor. But that's involved in the growth and attachment of the placenta during pregnancy. So this post said that the vaccine would cause a woman's body to fight this different spike protein and affect her fertility. But the truth is that these two spike proteins are completely different. They do not affect each other in any way. And one of the funny things about it is that while they were doing testing for the vaccine, there were many women who became pregnant after getting the vaccine, and there was only one person who suffered a pregnancy loss during this entire thing, and the vaccine that they were given was the placebo. So there is only one person that did not become pregnant after the whatever women volunteers that were tested, and they were not even given the real vaccine. So there is zero evidence, and matter of fact, evidence to the contrary that this affects pregnancy. It does not at all. If you've been seeing that, it's not true. It's just shit posting on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's not true.
Speaking of side effects, like something that people sorry, I think I got too far from the mic. Something that people have probably heard is that the Johnson & Johnson variant and the AstraZeneca variant, vaccines cause, like, they all have an increased risk of blood clots. And relatively, that is true. The Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca both have a 6 in a million chance of giving you blood clots, while the Pfizer and the other one, what the fuck is Moderna, those have a 4.5 in a million chance.
Yeah,
of
see
giving
those.
you
I have
blood
those
clots.
same numbers right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, to put that into perspective, you have a 1 in 6,000 chance of getting a blood clot just on a flight.
You also, if you get COVID, COVID is a one. So basically, out of every 1 million people that gets COVID, 39 have a blood clot. So go back to Pfizer. This is for the Johnson & Johnson one that I was looking at. Out of every 1 million people, only 5 get blood clots. So
Compared to 39.
compared
with
to
COVID.
39, you are much more likely to get a blood clot from getting the disease than you are this vaccine. So, like, the idea that it's not safe, it's just not true. You are still worse off getting the COVID disease than you are getting the vaccine. Because that's something else I've seen a lot of people say is that, well, I'll just get the disease. If it doesn't affect me, it doesn't affect me. Well, so even if it gets you and it doesn't affect you, you still had more of a chance of getting a blood clot than you did if you had just taken the fucking vaccine.
Right.
Yeah, that was definitely one. I wanted to go back to the women's pregnancy and in the fertility thing. So I've seen another one that it's like women who were given the vaccine, like very shortly after giving the vaccine, they just started bleeding profusely from their vagina. Like it was just like and it is just, that is not true. So they're conflating something. And so what's actually happening there is women who are getting it, some of them are experiencing much heavier periods than before, but there is no evidence to suggest that 20 minutes after getting the vaccine that they immediately just profusely started bleeding from their vagina. That has not happened. That's not true. Like I said, some evidence to suggest you might have a heavier flow, and that seems to go away in a short amount of time, but there, once again, no impact on pregnancy whatsoever. Like, women still got pregnant. You're totally fine.
So the takeaway, I know we're not done, but thus far, the takeaway has been the vaccines are extremely safe. And to those listening, if you haven't already, I urge you to get vaccinated. help us fight this goddamn pandemic so we can go back to fucking normal. Because I want to go back to my concerts, dude.
Yeah. So like, okay, so this kind of leads me into, so why should you get vaccinated? You know, so some people think they're invincible or they just don't need it because they've already had the disease or things like that. So here's why you should get vaccinated. A, it will keep you from getting COVID, which I think is the ultimate goal. No one wants it. I mean, 2, it helps stop the spread of COVID to those who are more vulnerable. I mean, the disease has currently killed 3.9 million people worldwide and 586,000 in the US alone. So whether COVID would really affect you or not is not really the point. It's the point that you won't be then spreading this to someone who could die, which has clearly been the case. Like, millions of people have died from this. Now, if you're someone who believes that this entire thing is a hoax, I guess I don't really have, there's nothing I could say that would persuade you anyways.
You know, those type of people are likely the people who think that the vaccine has the microchip in it.
Probably, and I want to talk about that in a minute.
Oh,
but,
yeah,
but
I've
that
got
is
something about that.
Okay,
too.
yeah, cool. I read a little bit about it, but so somebody sent, goddamn, who was it? Mark sent this thing, and he said it was a profile picture of this guy in one of his groups that he's in on Facebook, and it's like a little sticker around this guy, and he said, "I would rather shit in my hands.
Yep.
I would rather shit in my hands and clap than get the vaccine." And I'm like, that is no pun intended, the dumbest shit I have ever heard anyone say in my entire life. Why is that your go? Why would you? Why is that your go-to?
Fuck?
The fuck is wrong with that guy?
He could have said, "I'd rather get COVID than get the vaccine," but no, he wanted to take a shit in his hand and clap.
I'm starting to think that this guy might have done this before. This is just like.
He's going based off experience.
Yeah,
like, this
exactly.
isn't that
I was
bad.
like, the fuck is that, man? Okay, so anyways, so herd immunity is another big thing, and I want to get into that a little bit. But for another reason why you should get vaccinated is that we are not going to achieve herd immunity until we get about 70 to 90% of the entire population has been vaccinated. We're currently just at 37% in the US, and that number has kind of stalled out because there has been a huge vaccine hesitancy since it's come out for the reasons that we are hopefully trying to dispel a little bit. So we're not going to just be able to walk around and not be affected by COVID until we get about 80 to 90% of us vaccinated, and only 37% are. So that there's a huge disparity there. We got to pump that up. So this one is just more of an incentive, but the CDC did just announce as of last week that those who are fully vaccinated no longer have to wear a mask. So if you're one of those people who has been completely bitching about wearing a mask this entire time, here is your incentive. If you want to take off your fucking mask, go get vaccinated. I mean, I know people seem to hate this. They think it's some kind of infringement on their liberties, and I'm not even going to knock you here. If you have really...
I'm knocking you. I'm not
going to knock you. I'm trying to encourage you. If you really don't want to wear the mask anymore, just go get vaccinated. That's it. Fuck Greg Abbott and whatever he has to say, because I don't give a fuck what his rules are. But if you don't want to wear your mask anymore, just go get vaccinated. That's it. You can take it off. But this is arguably the biggest reason why people, other than, you could kill other people. I think maybe that should be the biggest one, but this is the biggest reason why you should. And this one is the one that you should be worried about. And it's that the longer the disease is in the general populace, the more time it has to mutate into a deadlier and more contagious form of the disease, which at any point could set us back to day one in our progress of combating this. So, and we're already seeing such things starting to happen with the two most notable variants, which are the UK variant and the India variant, which is taking a huge fucking toll on India right now. It's currently killed. It's currently infecting 350,000 people each day at the end of April. And at the end of April, the 7-day average death toll was 4,000 people. So it is just wiping the floor with India right now. And this is just a slight variant of the one that we already have. Now, so far, everything that we have shows that our vaccine is still going to be effective against these variants. But it proves the point that at any given point, this could mutate into something that is more contagious and is more deadly, or completely curtails our vaccine. Like, it just goes around, it's not affected by it. So the longer we dilly-dally with getting vaccine, the more chances are like we're gonna go right back to day fucking one of lockdown if if a new form comes out that is just way worse than the others. And that's a risk that we are literally taking every single day. So I think that's one of the more important reasons why people should get vaccinated. I don't know. You have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, both of those kind of speak to a collectivist mindset that just a lot of people don't seem to have. But just go out there, go get vaccinated, and like give yourself a pat on the back for doing something for the greater good. I think that's commendable.
Yeah.
So if you do something for the greater good, I mean, you honestly, like you probably deserve a medal. God damn it.
We'll give you a medal. I mean, there's already so many states that are offering like crazy fucking incentives for getting the vaccine. Like I think Ohio or some.
Yeah,
others.
I was going to say Ohio or Oregon.
I could be wrong.
The lottery.
Here. Yeah, so like if you get the vaccine, you're also entered in for a chance to win like $1 million. Like, and good for you. If you're like a local municipality that wants to offer like badass incentives, like hey, come here, get a vaccine, we'll give you a free case of beer. Do it. Like whatever gets people vaccinated. Yeah, I thought that shit was hilarious that they're just like, please, because we're having to throw out like a shitload, aren't we? Like,
yeah.
Like there's a lot that are.
We did in the beginning. I haven't been keeping up with that now.
Yeah, I don't know what it is now. I saw like a John Oliver piece on it, and he was saying that like our demand, like it's just we have such a supply that demand is just not meeting, and we're basically having to like throw out these vaccines that could go to people who truly need them in other parts of the world. And we're really spoiled here in that sense that we have so many we literally don't know what to fucking do with because people don't want to get vaccinated, which, I think that's a huge problem. But so I wanted to move on. So here's another huge COVID. This is just a COVID myth, but I guess it could also stray into the vaccine, is that some people are saying that they don't need to get vaccinated because they've already had COVID. And that is not true. So we know with COVID that reinfection is absolutely possible. There are multiple people who have gotten it multiple times already, and some people who have had it for an extended period of time that has just lasted so long. So a lot of this is kind of based on like, I'll get the antibodies. Well, you're not even guaranteed to get them. So there's that. And then also it's looking like from the information that we currently have that natural immunity, so the immunity that you have after having the disease, it might last as little as 3 months. So not long before you can just completely get reinfected. And now we don't know quite how long the vaccine will give you immunity, but we're pretty sure it's going to be longer than natural immunity. So you are still better off getting this vaccine. You will be more protected than if you just have natural immunity, because like I said, that may or may not even be a thing for you. So that is a huge myth that should just be completely dispelled like now. Even if you've had it, you should still get the vaccine.
Yeah, so to comment on that, since we're still relatively new in the process, we can say that the vaccine offers at least 6 months of protection from COVID because we are roughly 6 months out from the clinical trials.
Okay.
We can probably increase those numbers as time goes on, but we can't like definitively say this vaccine is going to protect you for 2 years,
right?
Because it hasn't been 2 years.
I have also seen the 6 month report too, is that we at least know that. But as far as how long is it actually going to protect you, we don't know. Yeah, like it could be years, it could be a shorter amount of time, but
6 months is promising, more promising than the 3 months that you just mentioned.
Right, exactly. Like
with natural immunity.
Yeah, it has been shown to be as little as 3 months. So even if you had the disease, you're still not 100% good. You should go get the vaccine.
How about them microchips?
So
is it too early to talk about the microchips?
No, I want to leave that for last. We'll just end that last. So here we go. So reasons to get these are like more reasons why you should get the vaccine. So I want to talk about the effectiveness of the vaccine in general. So you're about 80% protected after receiving your first dose. So you have much more of an immunity against the disease if you just get one shot. Which is fantastic. And that number eventually increases to about 90% after receiving your second dose. So your chances of getting the disease after that second dose are very slim. So it's a good thing to get. So you have to wait about 2 weeks after receiving your second dose for it to be fully effective, because there is kind of a delay, which is some of the reason why we are seeing some people get infected even though they do have the vaccine. Because I think there was some cases of like some baseball players getting it and some other people with the AstraZeneca. But yeah, so that's why. If you've seen that, it's not because the vaccine doesn't work. It's because what probably happened was somebody who went and got it, they got it that day, and then that night went out to a bar or something like that, or was around a big group of people and was exposed to it. There is kind of a delay with its effectiveness. It kind of increases as the time goes on. So you do need to wait about 2 weeks after receiving it before you're good to go out and party and do whatever the fuck you want. But to go on to that point, so far, those who have been infected after receiving a vaccine is only 1/100th of 1%. So you are extremely unlikely to get infected after having the vaccine. So it is very, very effective based on everything that we're seeing so far. So, for those who are saying that it doesn't work or it's not worth getting, that's not true. It absolutely is. Okay. So then now for the ending piece, let's move on to the more absurd theories, or not theories, but things that people seem to think happens with this vaccine.
Would you mind if I opened up with this?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. So I have seen several people on Twitter, and I know Twitter is not like the font of humanity, but I mean, God, I've seen enough people say this to where it's ridiculous.
Okay.
Vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines, are methodical population control, and they're meant to kill all of us.
Interesting. Okay.
I
haven't seen that
murder.
one.
I've seen that 4 times.
Oh my God.
And the fact that I've seen it 4 times makes me think that there's enough people out there that think that it needs to be said.
Apparently so, yeah.
I mean, I can't possibly tell you anything to dissuade you if you truly believe that. But go outside and touch grass. Like, look at all the people around you who have been vaccinated. And then take notes of when they die at the ripe old age of probably 60 to 90 of natural causes, because that's, roughly the age of death in the United States.
Yeah, I've seen Alex Jones say, like, people are going to develop neurological issues within 1 year and be dead in 10 after taking this vaccine, which that is just complete horseshit. There is no basis in reality of that. I don't even know where people are getting crazy shit like this. That doesn't even make any sense.
Like, it's probably just a shitpost factory.
Who knows? Well, yeah, it's probably it probably started with like a fucking troll just saying dumb shit, and then people took it seriously and just ran with it. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with, because that's just ridiculous. Anyways, continue. I know you got more crazy shit over there.
Well, I mean, it was the mass murder bullshit, and then there's the microchips, which I'm willing to sympathize with this viewpoint, because, truth be told, I thought the government was microchipping us at one point when I was 14. I was so fucking scared. I was scared of FEMA. I was scared of vaccines.
Really?
Yes. I was full-blown Illuminati.
Where did you get that from? Like, where were you hearing that to make you think that when you were 14?
It began with the people that I worked with at that medical cardiology job,
okay.
when we were in high school.
Well, that's even more sad.
I know,
What?
I know. But these people weren't medical professionals. Like, we were all just...
They just work under the guise that they are.
We were doing a completely unrelated task. We were just sorting medical records.
Yeah.
We didn't have any patient contact, so we were just bullshitting. And they told me about vaccinations, Illuminati, microchips. It just spiraled downhill from there.
God,
Shit
what
was
the
bad.
Fuck?
And being in high school, a young 14-year-old boy, I was very impressionable.
Well, it's all right, Michael. It seems like most adults are too.
Yeah, I mean, so I can understand the fear of the microchips. So if you believe that, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. Not numbers, but some information. So the cell phone that you carry with you at all times is equipped to track you. It's loaded with a GPS. If you decide to turn the GPS off, your rough location can still be tracked via internet access. Whenever you connect to any cell phone tower or Wi-Fi network, that provides the network provider with a rough location of everywhere that you have been, so long as you are connected to the internet.
Okay, so you want to stave off one existential crisis with another, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And even if you, so let's assume that you are connected to the internet. Every website that you visit collects cookies on you. And I hate the fact that they're called cookies because it sounds so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But cookies track your, let's see.
Kind of like your habits, like basically what you look at, and then they show you. They're the things basically responsible for. Oh, hey, I was looking at watches, and then you're scrolling on Instagram, you see ads for watches.
Yeah, it targets your online habits, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Your search history, how many times you visited the website, and I mean, I think that's wacky.
They're going to be appalled with how many times I visited Pornhub.
Yep.
They're going to be pissed.
And the fact that Facebook can create a shadow profile of you, even if you do not have an account, shows that the technology is possible for you to have a shadow profile on roughly anything.
Yeah, so basically, if you're getting this information from Facebook, we have some bad news to tell you, man.
Yeah, so if you're concerned about being tracked via, like, this vaccine, don't worry, because you are already being tracked in almost every other possible way.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, if you own basically any device that can connect to any form of internet, you're being tracked. Like, I mean, it's already been shown that the government basically is spying on us. But that's a whole other conversation. But point is that you are already being tracked. So the tracking chip is just dumb. So have you seen the part of this that I guess comes from like the Bill Gates side of it? Like why some people are saying there's microchips in it? Did you see that at all?
I've seen some people relate Bill Gates to population control, like he wants to limit the global population or something.
Yeah. Okay, so this is just all right. So I learned this through that John Oliver piece. I didn't get a chance to really look into it because I was using that piece as kind of like a refresher before this podcast. I was working out. I didn't have time. But I guess the chip tracking thing started with Bill Gates because like years ago they were trying to develop a technology that through vaccines for kind of like refugees or migrants when they get vaccinated, that the vaccine contained information in it that could show your medical records. I guess this was like some kind of like super experimental thing or whatnot, or I don't even know if it worked. I have no idea. I don't know nothing about it, but that is where it like originated, is they were working on this. And like just through the line, people have completely fucked up like what was actually going on. So then it became like, oh no, he's just tracking you, or then it became population control, blah, blah, blah. But completely different.
It's like a bad game of telephone.
Well, that's literally, I was trying to avoid using that analogy because that is exactly what John Oliver said. So, but you said it, so there, I guess we're good. Yeah, it's literally like playing telephone. So it's like, that's what it was. It was already like, holy shit, that's crazy. And then people just completely fucked up the original intent of that. And now we have microchips developed by Bill Gates.
Wow.
That is definitely the wackiest one that I have. Like, there's a lot. I mean, there's still some people that think it's a hoax, that you don't need the vaccine because it is a microchip, because the entire disease is a hoax, which, once again, there's just some like subgroups of people that I can't help or speak to. Like, if you believe that, I'm sorry, I got nothing to say to you. Like, there's just nothing I can say to change your mind.
Yeah.
Because that is insane. I don't understand the hoax one. Like, you know, I mean, they're literally like burning bodies in the street in India right now. Like, and it's not because, you know, they just decided to start burning bodies in the street in India. Like, that's absolutely insane. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we'll go ahead and kind of wrap it up after talking about some of the reasons why we think that y'all should get vaccinated. Now, and I want to preface this. I should have prefaced this, but I didn't, so I'll say it in the latter. Michael and I, we're not fucking doctors. We're not medical professionals. Everything that we've looked at is information that is out there that you or that anyone can find, and it is relevant information that has been fact-checked. It is in several medical journals. Most of the information that we threw at you guys tonight, I found on Healthline, Mayo Clinic, the CDC's website. Like, this is information that is out there. And it's not skewed in any way, that they're not lying to you. This is across the medical board. These are true facts. And now, did we get some things wrong? We might have. Like I said, we're not doctors, but we're just presenting information that we have seen to you to hopefully dispel some of your hesitancy. I hope so. I hope it works because, like I said, the longer we're in this, the more chance there is that we're just set back to day one, which I know none of you want. None of us want this. So hopefully this helped in some way, and I ask anyone listening, like even our friend group, like if you have not been vaccinated, please go get vaccinated. I would greatly appreciate it if you care at all what I think, which I know you don't, but you should just do it anyways. It'd be a nice thing to do. All right, so I think we'll wrap it up there. So this has been Season 1, Episode 1, Vaccinations and COVID Aftermath. Join us back next week for Season 2. For Season 1, Episode 2. I'm not going to disclose what the topic is, but it'll be interesting. And like I said, we have 10 episodes planned out for this entire season. So tune back next week to hear what we have to say. I have been your host, Trevor King Minor, and this has been my lovely co-host, Michael Ross.
I'll give you a hint about next week. It's furry elf porn.
Oh, fuck yeah. Good night, guys.